Charlotte, it's 6 years. How do we end up here?
Yeah, I actually ended up here because I got inspired by this lawyer in a novel I read, and he quit his, career to support homeless people, and he was, doing this work, and it really transformed him into a better person. And at that moment, I realized that I also wanted to do the same for my life, and I think that informed the path I took on later on in my life.
And I remember meeting you at Educate. Is that how you ended up at Educate?
Yes, actually, after that I ended up becoming a teacher, and as a teacher I felt I wasn't fulfilled, and I was missing something, so I decided to join Educate to look for something inspiring and challenging, and that's how I ended up shaping and developing young people to become the leaders and entrepreneurs in Africa.
And I was excited by that vision. Thanks for working on it all the way in New York. I returned after 10 years in the US, and I heard of Educate and nurturing leaders and entrepreneurs. And I came because my purpose was to nurture those leaders myself, as having also grown up in the rural communities where I had lost my family of 7 and orphaned, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I remember joining you, and you were so excited about doing something that would shape their minds better. You mentioned something around they are not coming in prepared for the world of work or the future of work.
Yes, because the education system at that moment I felt was not really preparing young people for the world of work. And so I started thinking about what is the problem, and that's when I did some research and realized that about 70% of children who enroll in primary drop out before completion. And what makes it worse is that about 7 out of 10 children cannot read and write.
Yes, and you shared deeply that even their arithmetic, by the way, their mathematics was so low that about almost over 60% of those were not able to complete a P2 mathematics question. And that took us to, I remember us going with you to Ntumula, and you said we needed to follow this child, Nyakato.
Yes.
And I remember you followed this child, and it really changed our life.
It did. And that's one of my fondest memories, because I had to walk 10 kilometers, to shadow Nyakato and experience what she goes through as a student in that school. And when I got to her home, I found her mother, who had really big dreams for Nyakato. And I think while I was, on that journey with her, she mentioned something that really transformed my life and also informed the way that we train and recruit fellows currently.
Yes.
And she mentioned about this teacher, Margaret, who really cared deeply about her, and she always shared with her a snack at break time, and that's the reason why she braved the rain that moment.
Yes, she would come in the
so
rain.
that she can come
Yes.
and meet teacher Margaret.
Yes, and she would come in the rain and she would be so drenched, but that teacher still inspired her to stay in school, even walk those distances.
Exactly.
Do you remember also when we walked to the cow's office, Mr. Gakwandi, when we shared the vision and he said, "You young people, I wish that this vision had come 15 years earlier," and he quickly signed the MOU for us to launch in Luwero.
Yes, and that's when we actually went on to really develop and train these young leaders that we placed in the primary schools in Butuntumula sub-county.
Yes.
And they started improving the learning outcomes of children and also transforming the communities.
Yes. I remember very well, actually, when we are hiring these young people, especially at Mbarara University, the guild president did not even want to apply, but when we shared the story of that child and he chose to apply immediately. Do you remember how we've been able to work with some of these communities and the changes that have happened so far in these communities?
I think for me, the biggest change that I that we were able to realize was when Charles and Carol went into that Mwangi community and mobilized the community to return their children to school.
Yes.
And the enrollment grew from 88 children to 350 children.
Yes.
And the community was excited about our fellows, and they wanted to support them so that they can improve the standard of the school.
Yeah, I remember also that when we visited Charlotte, the teachers also shared, and the headmaster shared about how the motivation of the teachers in this school had improved because they were looking at what Charles and Carol were doing. And also the children, like remember we took our friends and partners and the amazing projects that they were doing, and their numbers had really shot up in terms of their learning outcomes.
Exactly.
So for me, I think that's what has excited me even to stay this journey for this long.
Yeah, and for me, when I look back, I remember some of our accomplishments as, as Teach for Uganda. One of them is really being able to see the children read and write.
Yes.
Yeah? You remember
yes.
when we had just started, the kids could not read, some of them could not even write their own names. But by the end of the 2 years, the kids had started reading, they were confident, their self-esteem had, risen.
Blossomed.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
And that for me was a moment when I realized that our model indeed was making a difference in the lives of children.
And for me, really, the other piece, Charlotte, is the parents, like the parents' involvement. Remember when we joined, some of the parents were so disengaged, they were not supporting the children. In our communities, kids were not eating, and by the time the fellows were able to finish, the kids were now having a meal because of the parents' engagement in the school.
Exactly, and their mindset changed as well. There was a mindset shift that took place because now they realized that education is really important, and they started valuing it, and they started supporting the children as well as the schools. And that's how we got to see children feeding at school, seeing their, their learning outcomes improve, as well as their confidence.
Yes, and also we have to credit our fellows because that wouldn't happen if they weren't walking miles and miles to be able to visit the parents and to meet them where they are. I remember even one parent shared that for the first time, I've never seen any teacher visit me.
Exactly.
Now I see them coming every day, so I'm forced to bring my son to school.
Yeah.
Remember that?
And that's really amazing. And moving on, I feel like there are certain things we need to address as Teach for Uganda. I mean, our education system has a lot of challenges.
It has.
We all agree to that, right?
It does.
And so moving forward, there are certain things that we feel that we could change or we could influence so that we can really have a great education system.
Don't we wish that for all our kids, Charlotte, especially for your children and my children?
Exactly. And one of them, I feel, is the way we recruit teachers. And I think Teach for Uganda moving forward, we want to be able to influence how teachers are recruited and selected, into their teaching positions. And we've learned from our network of over 60 partners, right? Yeah. And we have really great practices that we can share with the Education Service Commission so that they can be able to leverage on that and bring in the best quality teachers in the system.
Wouldn't that be wonderful, Charlotte?
It would.
And I pray, as our ministry always says, that they will be willing to learn with us and learn from our impact. And for me, Charlotte, what really inspires me is how we coach and train our teachers.
Yes.
And I think with the coming, now there's UNITE, Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education. Yeah. And with that coming, I hope that they will be able to see us as partners with them in how we shape the way teachers are trained and prepared to really change the learning outcomes of our children.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I think we should position TFU to become one of the suppliers of continuous professional development for the teachers.
And I think that would be fantastic because ideally I believe that the teachers, as they always say, there's no education system that is greater than its teachers.
Exactly.
Yeah. All around with our 30,000 parents that we'll be working with, together we are galvanizing the collective leadership that we hope so that all our children have a bright future, the potential that they deserve.
Exactly. And I think you've spoken about collective leadership, right? Collective leadership is a key for us to realize our vision of one day all children will attain an equitable quality education. And once our alumni are working together with other like-minded people, they'll be able to transform the education sector from within and without.
Yes, you know these sectors, right?
So that all these children in Uganda, all children in Uganda, irrespective of their socioeconomic status, can have access to a quality education that will enable them to thrive and fulfill their potential.